Discover the advantage of unlimited access to all the stories and resources from IBJ and Inside Indiana Business. From insights to inspiration, business leaders rely on the IBJ for all things Indiana business. Start your $1 a week trial now at ibj.com/trial offer.
This is Inside Indiana Business Radio for the afternoon of Friday, March 20th, 2026. I'm Alex Brown. 20 years after the University of Notre Dame launched a campaign to bring its faculty research to a national football audience, the stories it has told are still unfolding in labs, classrooms, and the lives of people who watched them. Minal Dada, professor of aerospace and mechanical engineering, joined a panel Thursday honoring the What Would You Fight For campaign.
Notre Dame was invested in telling these positive stories and in using non-traditional outlets like a football game to communicate the positives of the work that we're doing.
Since 2006, 117 two-minute segments have aired during NBC Sunday Night Football broadcasts highlighting work at Notre Dame. Heartland Foods Product Group, the manufacturer of artificial sweetener Splenda, plans to spend $91 million over the next 5 years to expand operations in Indianapolis. The project will center on the integration of SlimFast into its manufacturing operation on the city's northwest side and add 30 jobs. A manufacturing company in Wabash County has named its next president. Kalenborn Abresist Corporation, which manufactures wear-resistant linings and materials for industrial equipment, has promoted Chief Operating Officer Scott Dietrich to the role effective April 1st. From the number one source for Indiana business news, this is Inside Indiana Business Radio.
Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media Podcast Network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.
The Indiana Supreme Court has banned a former Franklin County judge from ever sitting on the bench again. IIB's Aubriana Herron has the story.
In a Thursday order, the court found that retired Judge Stephen Cox, who served on the Franklin Circuit Court for nearly 30 years, engaged in an improper ex parte communication with a level 1 felony criminal defendant and relied on that communication to rule in the case. The matter stems from a 2022 felony attempted murder case involving a former police officer. In January 2023, Cox requested that a probation officer personally take him to the defendant's residence without notifying any counsel and spoke with the defendant and his parents about his physical and mental condition. According to court documents, the Supreme Court Disciplinary Commission first filed its complaint against Cox on April 3, 2025, alleging 3 counts of misconduct. Among its findings, the Supreme Court determined that Cox violated a rule which prohibits a judge from independent fact-gathering. In its order, the court stated, quote, "This egregious misconduct warrants the most serious discipline we can impose on a judge who no longer holds elected office," end quote. Although Cox retired in 2024, he could have returned to the bench as a senior judge or judge pro tem. With Thursday's ruling, Cox is prohibited from donning the black robes or serving in a judicial capacity again. Aubriana Herron, Inside Indiana Business Radio.
The Indianapolis-based MCL restaurant and bakery chain is downsizing from 12 to 7 locations during the early months of 2026, but a company representative said the remaining restaurants are healthy assets for the business founded in 1950. MCL restaurants in Indianapolis, Muncie, and Terre Haute, plus locations in Illinois and Ohio, are exiting in quick succession this year. The company said 4 of the 5 restaurants underperformed financially. The Muncie restaurant's fate is tied to its location inside Muncie Mall, which is scheduled for demolition. Gamma Mechanica, an Italy-based plastics recycling equipment manufacturing company, is celebrating a local company collaboration in 1 year in Madison County. The company's North American R&D and manufacturing operations are located within the flagship Enterprise Center in Anderson. The facility allows for the recycling of plastics, and manager Jerry Gray said the company wants to serve clients in-house and work with outside businesses.
We're bringing a whole new business into this area. We want to sell our machines in U.S. and we want to build in U.S. and we're also going to build certain components in Italy. but the biggest part of the machine we can also build here in Anderson. And that was the reason we selected this location.
Gray estimates the company invested $2 million into the facility, which also includes a showroom where clients can bring in materials for testing and processing. Huntington University President Rob Pepper is this week's guest on the Business and Beyond podcast with Gary Dick, presented by PNC, a weekly conversation with high-profile Hoosiers in business, sports and entertainment, and beyond. Available now on the IBJ Media app or your favorite podcast provider. I'm Alex Brown for Inside Indiana Business Radio on Demand.
Hi, I'm Dave Neff, host of Talent Scout. On this show, we shine a light on Indiana's next generation of leaders who are making a difference in business, community, and civic life. These are real conversations about purpose, mentorship, and building a future that matters. Join me as we invest in leadership that lasts. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app or listen at ibjpodcasts.com. Thanks for listening to this IBJ Media podcast. You're probably going to remember this ad. Do you know why? Podcast advertising works. 85% of listeners recalled hearing an ad during a podcast, and 70% of podcast listeners have acted after hearing an ad. So whether you're looking to be heard across the entire IBJ Media podcast network, sponsor one of our shows, or just start with a 30-second ad, IBJ Media can help. Contact advertise at ibj.com to learn more.